Greetings, my children, and welcome back to the Longbox of the Damned! What? It's summer! I always dress for the occasion. But don't think that the bright colors means that there won't be some darkness. I still have a nightmare for you. A nightmare where heroes feast upon your flesh. I speak, of course, of the Marvel Zombies, my children. But how did the Marvel Zombies begin? Well, they got their start in the pages of Ultimate Fantastic Four, the three-part storyline crossover. After dealing with some hackers who attempted to hold the world hostage by stealing the Fantastic Four's time travel plans to go back in time and threaten the evolution of mankind by killing the first life forms, I'd say this is the kind of weird crap that happens in superhero comics, but I'm just annoyed that they did something that stupid instead of just traveling back a week with lottery tickets. Reed Richards reveals that he has made contact with a parallel universe. The other Reed Richards seems rather nice, sighing he is gathering together the finest minds in the multiverse for a mission. He seems to look like the normal Marvel Universe's Reed Richards. Wow, could this be the first meeting between the Ultimate Universe and the main Marvel Universe? Nope! It's a world of zombies! The world is in ruins and all the superheroes are undead. Zombie Reed Richards explains that purple lightning appeared in the sky and then someone who resembles the Marvel hero The Sentry fell to Earth. The Avengers were called in to investigate, but it seems the zombie plague has a mind of its own. It deliberately targeted superpowered individuals, spreading quickly until 99.9% of the population was dead. The Marvel Zombies truly are something different from the standard flesh eaters. You've got your classic Romero zombies, or your even more classic voodoo zombies that are just people under a form of mind control. Then there's rage zombies, so full of energy, but ultimately mindless. The Marvel Zombies, however, they can think. They can rationalize. They can justify it. That, my children, is what is so frightening about these zombies. All the old types of zombies are just the raging hordes, their only power being their numbers. But these zombies are just like the normal people, but so very, very hungry. The hunger is too much for them. They cannot escape it. They cannot resist it. They can only feed it. No morals, no conscience, just the hunger and their ability to say, well, if I didn't eat their flesh, how would I remain intelligent enough to elude the hunger? Of course, that's not to say that everyone is within their right mind. Hulk is hungriest one of all! No longer is it his rage that turns Bruce Banner into the incredible muncher, but that craving for living things to eat. Anyway, as I said, not everyone has died in the apocalypse. Magneto rescues Ultimate Reed Richards and brings him to the last three other humans. When he explains the situation, they realize they can use the dimensional teleporter to escape. Or at the very least, they must destroy the dimensional teleporter on their end, lest the zombies escape into the Ultimate Universe. Except, well, they already have. The zombified Fantastic Four come through the teleporter. However, the Ultimate Fantastic Four are able to subdue them and go through the portal to rescue Reed. Unfortunately, Magneto is forced to stay behind and destroy the teleporter to ensure the rest of the zombified superheroes don't follow them through. And then Greg Land draws what has been lovingly called porn face. However, this is not the end of the story, my children. Hell, it's not even really the beginning. Come back tomorrow, little ones, and we will once again look at the mini-series that really got it going. Marvel Zombies! Hello, my children! The first year of the Longbox, we discussed in very detail this mini-series. But there was plenty I did not discuss that I can here. Spoilers, everyone! Spoiled like the zombies! When we last left the Marvel Zombies, the Master of Magnetism stood alone against an army of very angry zombie superheroes. He does his best to survive, and even learns that there are more survivors up in orbit, his former acolytes in particular. But unfortunately, the zombies find him and gobble him right up. We see that Ant-Man has also survived his hunger by having taken Black Panther and is eating him a little at a time. Ant-Man claims it's all for the greater good, but when the Wasp finds out, she's none too happy. Wasp chews his head off over it, and then he bites her head off over it. The zombies are, of course, getting too numerous as they fight with one another over how the hunger is keeping them from sharing any bodies they come across with the others. However, some new salvation arrives in the form of the Silver Surfer, who comes to inform them that this planet has been chosen to be consumed by Galactus, devourer of worlds. It is interesting, my children, to see in what ways the zombie virus affects the heroes. For example, Wolverine no longer has his healing factor, which he laments when his attempt to slice the Silver Surfer only results in his arm falling off. Then there is Thor, having to wield a makeshift hammer, obviously because he no longer is worthy enough to carry Mjolnir. The Silver Surfer manages to kill most of the heroes and villains in this battle, but finally the Hulk manages to bite off the Silver Surfer's head. When Beast complains that some of them didn't get anything to eat, Colonel America accidentally uses the Power Cosmic to blast his head off. Head-biting and distraction seems to be a very popular way of killing things in this series. A reference to zombies needing to have their brains destroyed, perhaps? The Black Panther escapes from Ant-Man's lab, carrying with him the head of the Wasp. He is rescued by Magneto's acolytes, who have come for Magneto, but obviously fail to locate him. They take the Panther back with them along with the Wasp's head for study, and because the Black Panther thinks that, well, just a head is not much of a threat since it can't move on its own. Galactus also arrives and is naturally upset when he learns that his herald has been consumed. The heroes attack, but are easily repelled. With some of the heroes still being geniuses, they create a weapon to fight off Galactus, staving off their hunger by reaching into their own stomachs and re-eating the bits they have eaten before. Because that works, apparently. Using their combined power cosmic into the weapon, they damage Galactus severely. Unfortunately, the heroes must also take on a squadron of zombified villains who seek to take him for themselves, destroying some of their own longtime enemies in the process. And finally, they have their Feast of Galactus. And in the end, we cut to 5 years later, where Black Panther and the Acolytes land back on Earth and find it deserted. The zombies are gone. Hell, even the Wasp seems to be cured of her hunger, now walking around in a robotic body. However, the story ends with the arrival of Galactus on a new world. Except Galactus is now 6 zombified heroes! As I said last time we talked of the story, my children, Marvel Zombies remains a wonderfully dark but funny little tale of everything gone wrong. Check it out, but come back next time when we discover what happened to the Zombie Fantastic Four. Hello, my children! The Marvel Zombies were introduced in the pages of Ultimate Fantastic Four, to the point where the zombified Fantastic Four were left behind on that world. Did you ever wonder what became of them? Ultimate Reed Richards has found a way to send them back to their zombie universe, even figuring out a way to keep them from returning. His father suggests that maybe they should just, kill the zombies, but Reed says that would be unethical. They are sentient beings, after all. Sentient beings that wish to consume the flesh of the living and deliberately spread a plague to exterminate all life on your planet. This is why you are the smart one, Reed. Unfortunately, they have some other concerns on their hands. Ultimate Johnny Storm has collapsed from some ailment, and examinations reveal a parasite inside of him. One that, like the zombie Fantastic Four, wishes to consume and destroy all living things on Earth. Johnny has only 7 days to live, and all the super science and contacts they know cannot help them. Hell, not even the Frightful Four, as they are calling themselves, will help. Unfortunately, their only option is to call Dr. Doom and see if he will be able to assist. But this is about the Marvel Zombies, so what are they up to? They begin their escape attempt from their cell, using the Invisible Woman to make them all invisible and appear as if they have teleported out of the cell. The guards, being kind of stupid, decide to enter the cell to investigate and are quickly eaten. It's slobbering time! The staff at the Baxter building contain them for the moment, but they're out and have access to technology. And zombie or no zombie, idiot or not, Reed Richards can still turn a toaster into a laser gun with enough time. So how much time will it take with a laboratory to make a way out of there? Meanwhile, Dr. Doom lies out his intense jealousy of Mr. Fantastic, wanting everything he possesses, wanting his knowledge and his body. Yes, he will save Johnny's life, but only if he and Reed Richards swap minds. Reed eventually agrees, and Dr. Doom quickly gets to work, insulting everybody along the way. Unfortunately, Doom botches the spell, and the creature inside Johnny becomes physically manifest, looking for the most powerful creature on Earth to inhabit. At first, everyone thinks it's going to Thor, but instead it goes right into Dr. Doom's body alongside Reed Richards. Reed in Doom's body then quickly enters the Baxter building and completely annihilates the Frightful Four, sending their bodies back into the zombie world. Dr. Doom, having a sense of honor about all of this because he screwed up the ritual, swaps minds again and enters the zombie universe. Right next to where the zombie superheroes are devouring Galactus. What became of Ultimate Dr. Doom? Well, next up, the first time the regular Marvel Universe encountered the zombie heroes. Sort of. After the events of the crossover comic Civil War, it was decided that perhaps Reed Richards and Sue Storm needed a bit of a break from their duties on the team. As such, they invited Black Panther and his then wife Storm to temporarily take their place on Marvel's first family. Ugh, all this talk of love without drinking blood or possessing fangs of any kind makes me sick, but fortunately, things get a bit more interesting in these issues. An insect-like creature from the negative zone appears and manages to overwhelm the four, requiring them to use a magic frog. I think the summer sun is starting to affect me, my children. To try to zap the bug into another dimension. Unfortunately for them, they are all sucked into the portal too, landing on the homeworld of the Skrulls. I always liked the Skrulls. Got to like any species that sounds like they named themselves Skulls. But the Skrulls have problems of their own, for you see, they've arrived on the Skrull homeworld of the Marvel Zombies universe. And as you recall from the first Marvel Zombies, the 6 remaining zombie superheroes have become the new Galactus, going from world to world, devouring the populations. The Fantastic Four soon join forces with the Skrulls as they start eating the people of this world. We even see Ant-Man opening up a a warship and dropping all the soldiers in it into his mouth like popcorn. It soon becomes apparent that the Skrulls are doomed, and the Fantastic Four need information, so they contact Earth, allowing the Black Panther to speak to himself. As for the Galactus Zombies, we soon see that they are not exactly a united front, with their own desires and prejudices behind them as they hurl insults at one another, and sometimes hurl each other. Even Spider-Man is still overcome with guilt about all they have done, all they have become. And they still are really sick of him complaining about that. Using their magic frogs, the Fantastic Four are able to finally escape the zombie universe, but the Galactus Zombies soon realize that with their power cosmic, they can even consume the planet itself, giving them some much-needed roughage in their diets. And this is never brought up ever again. All in all, the storyline is not that important in the Marvel Zombie saga, since it does not really tell us anything more than we already knew, but it is still good fun. Next time, however, we return to the opening day of the outbreak for something groovy. If there's one thing that horror always needs more of, my children, it's crossovers. Freddy vs. Jason, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Alien vs. Predator, and, of course, Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness. The zombie plague that destroyed that alternate Earth came from another dimension, my children, but it was not the only visit from another universe. Enter Ashley Williams, hero of the Evil Dead movies. After having some hijinks in his own series, he lands in a dumpster, because that's Ash's kind of luck, and ends up in the Marvel Universe. The spirit of the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead, possesses a homeless woman and informs Ash that this world will die and an army of the dead shall rise. And then Ash punches her because he really gets sick of this kind of crap. After accidentally helping the Wrecking Crew defeat Daredevil, Ash reads up on this world of superheroes and decides to go to the Avengers to warn them of the coming danger. Naturally, being so wise and calm, he gets their attention by shooting their intercom when it asks him a simple question. He believes that it's the Deadites from his world that are coming on the Avengers at first hear him out, but unfortunately he's less than convincing when he says that a bag lady told him this. Colonel America has Spidey whip up Ash and take him away as the purple lightning in the sky begins, heralding the arrival of the zombie century. Spidey is beaten by the good Colonel soon enough, though he retains his humanity long enough to save Ash from the zombies. But in that short amount of time, chaos has already begun spreading throughout the city, and he must flee to his aunt and wife. However, Ash then partners up with the Punisher, who then promptly starts killing criminals instead of focusing on the zombies, even when said criminals could be useful to them. Ash wisely abandons the Punisher, but takes all his guns, finding his real dance partners for this operation, Dazzler and the Scarlet Witch. Ash's plan is to get the Necronomicon and use it to try to undo the zombie plague. Before then, though, Ash is attacked and eaten by zombie Howard the Duck. Really not his day, is it? Well, not this Ash anyway. This poor Ash was the resident of the Marvel Universe, who got it in his head that he had a destiny as a hero. Until Howard's bill got into his head. Anyway, they search through Doctor Strange's library for the Necronomicon, but the books inform him that it is in the possession of Doctor Doom. Also, enjoy this purely superfluous cameo by Next Wave, Agents of Hate. While most of the story has been about Ash, we do learn of other things about the infection that were not revealed before. For example, S.H.I.E.L.D. could have contained the zombie outbreak in the opening hours, Except Quicksilver was infected, and thus spread the infection all over the world within minutes. Dr. Doom reveals to the three that the infection is not magical in nature, which Ash refuses to believe until the Necronomicon confirms this too. So, why did the Necronomicon warn him then? Because even though it is a book, it is also an asshole. There's no time to worry about that now, unfortunately, for soon the rest of the world has been picked clean of people, and all of the remaining zombie heroes gather outside Doom's castle for the last morsels, and soon breach their defenses. Dazzler and the Scarlet Witch are killed, leaving Ash to find a unique method of fighting the zombie heroes, using the Necronomicon to raise the Army of Darkness, his own zombie army, to fight against the Marvel Zombies. They naturally had no hope against such power, but it bought Ash enough time to escape into an interdimensional portal set up by Dr. Doom to save as many remaining uninfected humans as he could before succumbing to the zombies himself. Ashley Williams escapes, but unfortunately, due to the random placement of the dimensional portal, he finds himself in a world of Marvel werewolves! Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness is quite easily the best of the Marvel Zombies series, my children. The artwork is superb and detailed, the plot full of suspense, terror and humor, and seeing the reluctant chosen one interacting with Marvel characters, alive or dead, is nothing short of entertaining. However, one prequel to Marvel Zombies was not enough, so at the same time as this miniseries was coming out, Marvel released a one-shot that also expanded upon the events of the infection. But we'll talk about that one next time! Over the course of the Marvel Zombies saga, my children, we have beheld Spider-Man never stop moaning about how he attacked and ate his aunt and wife. So now it's time for us to see how that went down. Marvel Zombies Dead Dies is a prequel, much like Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness, but focused exclusively on the heroes and how things just kept going from bad to worse. No mention is made of Ash himself for copyright reasons, of course, but events are certainly referenced, like Spider-Man mentioning how Colonel America bit him in that series. However, a far more interesting revelation comes from Magneto aboard Asteroid M. For you see, he reveals that it was he who made some kind of deal that allowed the zombie plague to enter into this world. An attempt to thin out the Homo sapiens, give Homo superior an even fighting chance. He did not realize, however, that the virus affected mutants too, and thus he has doomed the planet. He heads to Earth hoping to rescue as many people as he can before the end comes. We also see Hank Pym as he knocks out Black Panther and takes him to his lab, as we saw in the miniseries. It's quite interesting, my children. Ant-Man has not turned yet, but he is already planning for what will happen to him now that he is infected, rationalizing his decision to take one of his friends and keep them as something to snack on from time to time. It does make me wonder, did this world ever really have heroes in it? On a more depressing note, it seems the infected She-Hulk managed to get to the children of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, eating them. Sue, in turn, pops her head like a balloon. Ben Grimm, might want to wash your face off. All the remaining heroes withdraw to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, where all the most intelligent heroes are instructed to work on some kind of cure for the disease. Everyone else will go off and try to save what is left of humanity. Mr. Fantastic, Iron Man, and Bruce Banner each work on their own, hoping to come up with an idea individually, and thus the other two could help them out when they have it. But it seems the loss of his children has driven poor Reed Richards quite mad, for as he studies the zombies, he decides that they are a superior life form. They use less energy, most bodily functions shut down as being unnecessary, and they may just be the next step in human evolution. Tony Stark is not quite so crazy though, so he figures
Maybe we should just leave into another dimension.
How many freaking dimensional portals were made on this Earth?
Soon, Reed Richards' madness overtakes him completely, and he deliberately infects the rest of his team, going on a rampage on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. Realizing that they could bring the infection with them to another world, Nick Fury orders Thor to destroy the dimensional portal. But its creation inspires the frightful four. They shall build their own portal, and they shall spread the hunger gospel. And we all saw how well that turned out. We have seen so much of the initial infection, all the heroes who were turned, and of course the rise of the new Galactus. But isn't anyone at all curious about what happened after all that? Come back next time as we finally get to the first official sequel to Marvel Zombies. When we last left the Marvel Zombies in the first miniseries, the humans aboard Asteroid M had returned to Earth to find it abandoned by the undead, who instead had gone to the stars as the new Galactus, seeking other worlds and other beings to consume. 40 years have passed since then, and a lot has happened. For starters, the Galactus Zombies have expanded their ranks, including Dark Phoenix, Gladiator, Firelord, and Thanos. Although Thanos soon finds himself without a head when he insults the Hulk. Whoopsie. They've also lost most of their Galactus armor, but have taken it upon themselves to do some repair work, replacing lost limbs with cybernetic attachments. It seems within 40 years, the zombies have impressively eaten all life in the cosmos. The universe is a big place, my children. Frighteningly big. To have done that in 40 years is...
Well, horror is where impossible things go to be free.
After so much time, they vaguely recall the Frightful Four's efforts to build an interdimensional portal, and decide they must return to Earth in the hopes of finding it. But Spider-Man, who apparently took the time to finally repair his mask, is realizing that the longer he goes without eating, the more the hunger begins to fade. Back on Earth, the Black Panther has become leader of the surviving humans. But a cult has arisen based on the former acolytes who want to seize power and kill him. Because they are kind of stupid. One of these fools tries to assassinate the Panther, almost succeeding, but the Wasp saves his life by turning the Panther into a zombie. And the two devour the would-be assassin.
Let this be a lesson to you, my children. Don't try to take out your seniors unless your teeth are sharper than theirs.
What's more, they find Hawkeye's decapitated head left over from back in the first miniseries. Although he's really a shell of his former self, seeing as he's been alone for 40 years underneath some debris. Like with the Wasp, they equip him with a cybernetic body. Wasp and Panther are put in a cell to let them pass through the hunger, and in the meantime, the acolytes take control of the village. After the hunger passes, Forge helps them escape, only for the Galactus Zombies to make their appearance. But time and their own neuroses have gotten the better of them. Ant-Man thinks they should turn the humans into a breeding colony, but Spider-Man and Luke Cage have had enough, the hunger having finally faded from them. The village, fortunately, has a protective force field to keep the Galactus Zombies out, and the acolytes decide to work with those still inside, given the crisis. Hell, the Wasp even decides to kiss the scientist who helped build her body, the two having fallen in love. Aw, isn't that sweet? Almost makes you forget that her lips have been replaced by teeth for some reason. The Galactus Zombies head out to try to find the dimensional portal, but it seems Forge has already taken it to the village. It no longer works, not surprising considering it was supposed to have been destroyed all that time ago, but hey, 40 years is a long time to make repairs. And they reveal their other science project. The half-decayed brains of Colonel America stuffed into the body of the Panther's dead son.
I did mention last time that I'm pretty sure this world never had any heroes, right?
Things do not go well as eventually the Galactus Zombies storm inside, but the remaining ones realize they're not hungry anymore. They're even willing to call a truce and end all of this. Except the Hulk is hungriest one there is, so he begins attacking and killing again. It's only thanks to the scientist guy's sacrifice that he reverts to Bruce Banner and they can finally kill the Hulk. They begin rebuilding and they work to repair the dimensional portal so that the humans can have civilization again. But they are all betrayed. It seems the Acolyte leader was responsible for the dimensional portal's sabotage, wanting to rule a small population. And he finally sends the zombie heroes to another dimension. They're someone else's problem now! Marvel Zombies 2 is a worthwhile follow-up to the original, dealing with the aftermath of so much hardship faced in the previous volume. It allows the zombie heroes some redemption. Not that I'm all that happy about that, but I suppose for all of you who like the cape and costume crowd, that is a good thing. We never do find out what happens to the remaining humans on this world after this, but the story of the zombies sent to another universe is not over yet.
But that's not what we're looking at next time, my children. No, next time we look at a different sort of follow-up to Marvel Zombies. Something that's rather beastly.
While today's offering is not really a Marvel Zombies story, it is tied into the Marvel Zombies continuity, so we might as well cover the series, my children. Even then, there are horrors to behold here. The idea of your favorite capes and costume crowd as apes might seem downright silly, and it is, but few people seem to remember that apes can be just as savage and bloodthirsty as the zombies themselves. Our lead in this story is a minor Marvel character called the Gibbon. He is so named because he happens to look exactly like, well, a gibbon. He feels he has things to offer to help mankind, but no one will take him seriously since he looks like an ape and all. Of course, that comes with the strength and agility of a gibbon, so he definitely has skills to offer. If only someone would notice him. Anyway, he volunteers for superhuman research at New York State University, where Dr. Fiona Fitzhugh theorizes that Marty Blank, the gibbon, is actually from a parallel universe. Her experiment to test this goes haywire, however, and the two are sent into another world. A world of Marvel apes. Yes, a planet where apes evolve from men? Or at least it's all chimps and gorillas and orangutans and all that instead of normal people. And of course, they run into the friendly neighborhood spider monkey as he faces off against Dr. Octopus. With Marty's help, they're able to take down the villain, impressing the Avengers of this world. Fiona is sent off to the Fantastic Four in the hopes that they can return her to her own home, while the Gibbon learns that there are quite a few reformed villains on the Avengers in this world. And we soon see why, my children. While Marty is quite pleased to be offered a chance to join the Avengers, he soon learns what justice is like on a world of animals. Those who do not swear to reform and join the Avengers find themselves ripped to shreds by claw and tooth. Marty realizes he really doesn't fit in around here and decides to go back with Fiona. But there's a little more horror here than I let on, my children. For you see, the Captain America of this world is, in fact, a vampire! Marty is taken by the outcasts, heroic apes who have evaded the blood-sucking captain like the X-Apes, and explain how Cap was replaced by his Nazi vampire enemy Baron Blood, who is responsible for the more aggressive tendencies of the Avengers. Fortunately, with Marty's knowledge of Captain America from his own universe, they locate the original, still frozen in ice in the Arctic, but Marty and Fiona are captured. Baron Blood wants to use the portal to send his own vampire troops into the regular Marvel universe, consume the blood of human beings. But fortunately, with the help of the outcasts, and one unique simian hero called Ape X, they are able to beat back the vampires and return home, with the ape version of Speedball along with them due to injuries he sustained. However, he does not want to return home, seeing as how tribal his people are. They would see him siding with the humans as a sign of betrayal and treachery. What's worse, he warns them that it's very likely the apes will still be coming. For you see, they may not have liked a vampire commanding them, but they still were more than happy to assist Baron Blood in culling villains who didn't play nice. The problem was not Baron Blood, it was the world! It's the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. And when they eventually find something that they want, they won't stop until they get it. And indeed, this was not the end for the Marvel apes. What followed next were a series of one-shots that led into the fight for domination! So that monkey Speedball is now stuck in the Marvel Universe. Unfortunately for him, this was during a time where not only the name of Speedball was tainted, but it was in the wake of the event comic Civil War, when all superpowered individuals, regardless of age, were forced to register with the government and become superheroes, even if all they wanted was to fly and make clouds. It's called the Initiative. Speedball is okay with that, just not so much with the childishness of his peers who mock his monkeyness. However, he has a new job to do. It seems Ape X, his best friend from the Ape universe, has been spotted in Los Angeles and he's been recruited to hunt him down since he disappears whenever cops or capes show up. With the help of Fiona Fitzhugh, he gets himself a device to attract superpowered apes to him. But unfortunately, it instead locates the ape minions of supervillain Red Ghost. Normally, a name like that would make me happy, but unfortunately, instead of hunting people with the supernatural, he prefers to use those of the simian variety. Although he can slip into intangibility, so he's got that going at least. During a light visit to this ghostly state, both peek in on the ape universe again, getting the Red Ghost's attention. In the meantime, Speedball manages to track down Ape X, only to find that, when he's not wearing the mystical mask, he's an ordinary human teen named Roy Rayner. He asks Speedball to train him a bit, but unfortunately the Red Ghost follows after. He wants to use Speedball as an interdimensional compass to lead him to the ape universe so that he can take it over. His apes keep the young Roy Rayner from becoming Ape X, Speedball making them swear to let him go if he does as he asks. The Red Ghost agrees, and they begin to phase into another universe. But it seems on yet another Earth, one quite familiar to us and yet so different, they are observing dimensional breaches into the Marvel Universe. Or, in this case, a breach exiting it. They use their technology to lock onto this other world, saying that they do not want to stay in their own universe and rot. And as you can see, my children, they mean that quite literally. Next time, we'll check back in on the Marvel Apes universe and what has happened since the miniseries. And see if Speedball's fears about that world were correct. Yesterday, we saw how Speedball was doing in the Marvel Universe, but how are things going back in the Ape Universe, In the wake of the defeat of the vampires, the amazing Spider Monkey has been rethinking his life a bit. Mostly he's been pondering just how cruel and violent his world is, especially after he beats up a common mugger, wanting him to be more submissive in the face of a stronger opponent. The other apes are in the process of trying to recreate the dimensional portal Fiona and Reed Richards created, eager to get to the human world. Unfortunately for them, the portal is still not working despite their best efforts. Captain America is hoping to cure his former partner Bucky of his vampirism, as well as get a cure for the human-looking Sue Storm, though it's clear they also come to dominate the humans, if only because, well, submission and domination are the ape way. We also get a flashback to the Marvel Apes crossover and see Marty interacting with Spider-Monkey, who tells Marty of his origin, of how he let a criminal go by, which resulted in his poor uncle being killed. Although where this universe zigs is that Spider-Monkey killed his uncle's murderer in this universe, his regret being that he didn't kill him sooner. When Marty proclaims that Spider-Monkey is nothing like Spider-Man, it got him to start thinking a bit differently. Although personally, I'm more than happy to see the bad guys get a taste of their own blood. During a battle with some criminals, and one former hero, Spider-Monkey continues to question the world on its values, especially when that hero, Chi-Chi, talks about a utopia where justice is determined by law and not by claw. I would say that would be boring, but then again I am familiar with Wolf and Bird, Counselors of the Macabre. After they kill the hero, they return to the lab and discover that they are close to making the portal work. They home in on Speedball, showing us the other half of the conversation from the Speedball special, and to make it clear that they do indeed plan to execute him for favoring the humans over them. Spider-Monkey decides that he did nothing wrong and sabotages the portal, making all the Ape Avengers turn on him and force him to flee. In the epilogue to the story, we see Speedball and the Red Ghost emerge back into the Ape universe. The Red Ghost boasts about how he will rule this world, but it seems others have their own plans. His travel to this world weakened the dimensional barriers and opened a door for others to follow. Namely, of course, the Marvel Zombies! Yes, my children, it seems the zombies and the apes are going to have a bit of a showdown. But not quite yet. Next time, we see what happened to the human Apex and our old pal Marty. While Speedball and the Red Ghost are on their way to the Ape universe, he left behind all of his monkey minions, whom Apex is only too happy to get in a fight with, until he realizes he can communicate with them and make friends. Unfortunately, the authorities soon arrive and take Apex and the others prisoner. We then meet Jane Potter, an eager intern at the newspaper Frontline, who wants to do a story about the interdimensional ape incursion that Marty had been discussing. Unfortunately, the newspaper editor thinks it's all bullcrap and refuses to print the story, not trusting Marty as a source given his own brief criminal past. However, there are those who do believe, like Funbula Eddie, aka Gorilla Girl, a superheroine who was friends with the monkey Speedball in the initiative. With them assuming that the Apex that's been spotted is from the Ape universe, they fear the apes are attempting to make their way into this one and need to follow up on it. The three head to a sacred facility of Hammer, an organization that replaced S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time, and wanted to have as much information about other dimensions as possible. But we'll get back to that idea in a future video, my children. You see, a little psycho running a project has gotten his hands on Apex and wants to get information on how to get to the Ape universe, thinking that that's where Apex came from. And this little man, this Milton Horak, is just as vicious and cruel as the Ape universe. He'd fit in right at home there, especially when he starts choking the poor kid who is Apex, demanding to be told how to get there. He even presents him with Uktron, supposedly the Ultron of the Ape world, but it's all a ruse, basically expecting a rescue party for him and hoping that he will lead them to the Ape universe so he can destroy it. He calls the Ape universe a cosmic joke, that it's just animals play acting as people.
And yet here, my children, we see an animal play acting as a person.
Our heroes manage to free Apex, who in turn frees the Red Ghost's minions, and Uktron and I make their way to a dimensional portal, their only means of escape. And of course they set it for the Ape universe with Marty's help. Once on the other side, Horak reveals his entire plan, but Apex is naturally a bit peeved and smashes the Uktron robot, cancelling the connection and closing the portal. However, they soon realize that this is not the Ape universe they have emerged out on, and there is a smell of death on the air, and the March of the Dead is approaching. But that is a story for later, my children. In the meantime, come back in 2 days when we finally see where this has been building. The first confrontation between the Marvel Apes and the Marvel Zombies! The smell of death is on the air, my children. And for 8 apes in particular, death is in their dreams. Yes, 8 inhabitants of the ape universe have visions of the future, of a war between ape and zombie, and of the ape universe eventually being overtaken by the zombies. The narrator for this particular tale is the Iron Mandrill, who is joined by the Hulk, Nick Fury of the year 2099, the Silver Surfer, Black Bolt, Cleuk, aka Doctor Strange, Professor Charles Xavier, and finally, Dr. Doom. Nick Fury has traveled back in time to prevent the zombie disaster from happening. None are quite certain where the visions of the future came from, but they have made one thing quite clear. Dr. Doom must not become a zombie. His knowledge of the mystic arts in combination with the ravenous hunger of a zombie would be catastrophic. Being the apes that they are, they do suggest killing him, but that idea gets thrown by the wayside since he is a major player for what is to come. Unfortunately, it seems the vision is a bit late, for the zombie invasion has already arrived. After the zombies devour Marvel Chimp, the Primate engage the zombies, including Hank Pym, the Wasp, Iron Man, Wolverine, and some guy named Triton. These are clearly from before the events of Marvel Zombies, seeing as most of them still possess their limbs. It is a fierce battle, especially since the zombies still possess their powers and most of their bodies. Of course, some of the battle is not real at all, for Professor Xavier's mental abilities make them think they are devouring Doom. There is an argument on how to proceed, since if even a bit of their zombie form stays in this universe, others could follow that trace into their own world. But that gives the zombies enough time to shake off the illusion. Fortunately, with the power of the Silver Surfer, they are able to send the zombies back into their own universe. However, this confuses Nick Fury, for she came back in time to actually ensure there was a zombie presence. You see, her future did face a zombie plague, but it was eventually overcome and the world was improved. But she is confused since none were apparently bitten. But then she quickly learns that she was bitten. And then she gets blasted by Iron Mandrill. Yes, that shows the future, eh? But wait, how could her future exist if she was destroyed before she could spread the plague? How could she have gone back in time if there is no reason to go back? Well, we learn in the closing pages why that is, my children, for it seems during the battle, the Wasp shrunk down rather small and got inside the Iron Mandrill's armor, taking a quick bite out of him. The Iron Mandrill manages to stave off his hunger by eating any ladies coming around to see Tony Stark, while he works in secret on a project of his own, a dimensional portal into the zombie universe. He plans to take control of the human zombies of that universe, to have them accept him as the head primate. Will he succeed? Is this the end of the Marvel Apes? Well, come back tomorrow, my children, and we will see the finale of the Marvel Apes part of this saga. The time has come at last, my children. The final battle between ape and zombie.
Truly, there have never been more natural enemies.
Let's tie the timelines in a bit, shall we?
After the events of Marvel Zombies Dead Dies, zombie Reed Richards
remembered that he already had a teleporter on hand at the Baxter building. While the Frightful Four head out to eat any remaining human survivors, Ant-Man and Wasp use the portal to home in on Ipe Speedball and the Red Ghost, the scene we had beheld in the Speedball special. Recruiting some other zombies, they go on the attack, and then retreat, as we beheld last time. But wait, it seems that on their return trip, all the interdimensional activity brought some other visitors to the zombie universe. Apex, Marty, the Red Ghost's minions, Gorilla Girl, and Giant Potter, as we saw at the end of Grantline.
It's like a big, gory poem, my children. It all comes together and rhymes.
But before our heroic primates are devoured, another flash in the sky occurs, and the Avengers descend upon the zombies, bringing with them reinforcements from their own universe too! Ironic, isn't it? The Marvel Zombies wanted to bite their prey whenever possible, but they never expected their prey to bite back. Unfortunately, while the Ipes achieve some victories, like pulling Reed Richards apart so that all that's left is his head, they are still quite underpowered against the zombies, especially when Captain America is killed. Our heroes reunite with Speedball and Spider-Monkey, and are all taken underground by the still-living Magneto, who wants to know what the hell is going on. Fortunately, everything is finally explained when the head of Reed Richards arrives. It seems that with his super stretchy powers, he's able to use the sinews of flesh as tentacles to let him move around. He admits that things have gotten a little out of hand and wants to undo this. We learn that Speedball and the Red Ghost encountered the Marvel zombie attack from last time right away, just narrowly escaping, although the Red Ghost vanished after that, thanks to the intervention of Spider-Monkey. They spotted Iron Mandrill becoming infected and saw him working on the dimensional portal, leading the Avengers back to him. For this service, the two were given a stay of execution, but they all decided that the zombie universe was a bigger threat and it needed to be dealt with, allowing for the Avengers to rally an army of super apes to wage war with the zombies. Zombie Reed Richards decides to link his time machine with the dimensional portal, wanting to stop any contact from happening between the apes and zombies. But Magneto wants to go a step further, preventing the zombie infection from ever occurring at all. The Red Ghost reappears, swearing to rally the ape heroes and distract the zombies so the plan can go off. Marty and Speedball become infected and killed, poor them, but no time to mourn. Zombie Reed Richards kills Magneto, telling the others that he will only reset time to avoid contact between their universes, even setting up a temporal field that will keep their memories intact and avoid a paradox from occurring. Gorilla Girl is sent back in time to the Ape universe, distracting the Ape Avengers from spotting Speedball and the Red Ghost back during the amazing Spider-Monkey special. Spider-Monkey is even able to sabotage the portal without anyone knowing this time, keeping them from finding the world of the Marvel heroes. Giant Potter and Ape X remember everything that happened, telling Marty about it, but what's more, Jane has decided that, well, she can't exactly sell the story to the newspaper, so how about making it into a comic book?
Ooh, I've got a title! Zombies!
And finally we have Zombie Reed Richards. He speculates that the source of the zombie infection wasn't Magneto making a deal, implied here that the deal he made with the zombies is the one that he mentioned earlier, but in reality, the source of the infection was his own dimensional portal!
Oh, that would make sense. Except where it doesn't, because Magneto was pretty clear about him being responsible for it at the beginning of Dead Dies, but nice try.
And thus the Marvel Ape saga comes to a close, my children. But this is not the end of the Marvel Zombies by a long shot. Before we catch up with the proper Marvel zombie story, there's some stuff involving the zombies that we should cover anyway, so see you tomorrow! Exiles was a series where a group of characters from different parallel realities hopped from one universe to the next, trying to correct mistakes that had happened. Fractured timelines, as it were. You would think with all of this dimension hopping that they would encounter the Marvel Zombies universe, but nope, that never actually happened. Instead, they did have an encounter with a single Marvel zombie, which is why we're here today. In a desert, a group of Wolverines from different universes all suddenly appeared. One of whom is a Marvel zombie Wolverine. However, this one seems a bit different. While the hunger persists, he seems to have more control over himself given the situation. What is the situation? The Time Broker, the being that initially called together the Exiles, in reality a group of interdimensional insects trying to make right a mistake they had made, has brought them all in to solve a particular crisis. On this world, Wolverine, Scarlet Warlock, Quicksilver, and Mesmero have all been combined into a single being, calling himself Brother Mutant. He has sworn to kill off all non-mutants, and the Time Broker would like that corrected. Unfortunately, what he doesn't tell them is that this is not the first time they have tried this. It seems the computers of the Time Broker simply stated that the solution to the problem was Wolverine, so they have been sending in teams of Wolverine over and over, only for them to become mind-controlled by Brother Mutant. Two Wolverines, a young child and an older man, escape from the battle with the other Wolverines and go to the Time Broker insects, demanding that they bring back the original Exiles to sort this mess out. Meanwhile, the others of the Lightest team have also managed to survive the battle relatively unscathed, including Zombie Wolverine, who's been making a snack of his other selves. Unfortunately, one of them has his mind taken over by Brother Mutant and slices off Zombie Wolvie's head. But as we have seen with the Marvel Zombies, losing your head is really just a minor setback. Of course, as the robot LCD points out to him, it is rather strange that his head is still able to talk despite not having any lungs to push air out. LCD was an android programmed to destroy Wolverine, 90% of her body being made up of plastic explosives. With the help of the Exiles, Elsie and the zombie Wolverine head are launched into Brother Mutant's face, biting his nose and exploding. Zombie Wolvie is gone, but the sacrifice softened up Brother Mutant and allowed for the remaining Wolverines from the group to end the fusion being. Overall, this story really had nothing at all to do with the Marvel Zombie saga, but it is an interesting diversion to see the murderous, flesh-eating zombies of this be used in a slightly more heroic capacity. Tomorrow, though? Well, it's time to finally return to the series proper with another sequel! So in the wake of that whole Civil War thing that Marvel did, every American state got its own superhero team. In the case of Florida, they got a group called the Command. And unfortunately, the Command head into a swamp to discover zombies! But these zombies are special, having been created by a zombie Deadpool, a refugee from the Marvel Zombies universe. Indeed, my children, the zombie plague has finally spread to the main Marvel universe. Fortunately, there are two survivors, Jennifer Kyle, an Atlantean princess, and Aquarian, a space hippie. Aquarian is infected, but fortunately his powers allow him to go into hibernation to try to purge the infection. The proper authorities are indeed aware of the coming zombie infection, partially thanks to Deadpool's disembodied head. More on that another day. On the battle with the Command. Heading things up is Armor, the alternate reality monitoring and operational response agency, a subdivision of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is currently employing Michael Morbius, the living vampire. Vampires and zombies? I feel warm and at home in this one.
Or perhaps that's just the sunburn from the summer sun.
They also call in a specialist, Aaron Stark, the Machine Man. Basically, he's like Bender from Futurama, except even more annoyed by fleshy humans. They explain that the Marvel Zombies universe is one that runs perpendicular to theirs, the two worlds intersecting at a single point, in this case a Florida swamp. Morbius wishes to create a vaccine against the zombie plague, but for that, they'll need an uninfected blood sample from the Marvel Zombie Universe. Machine Man is tasked to go into the zombie universe alongside Jocasta, a robot created by Hank Pym and a former Avenger herself, to collect the sample. Unfortunately, what they do not know is that this Morbius is holding the real one hostage, and is actually a zombie Morbius from the other universe, here to spread the hunger gospel. However, I don't think Zombius really thought through the plan of sending two machine people into the zombie universe, for as Machine Man points out, he can eviscerate all the fleshy ones he wants with zero consequence, and they'll pay him for it. So it's not really a zombie universe, but robot heaven! Or is it? Well, we'll get back to that. In the meantime, we learn that apparently the Kingpin survived his encounter with the Punisher back in Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness and became zombified himself. He kept his wife alive and human by locking her in a vault while he forged alliances with the remaining supervillains. Yes, it has been 1 year since the zombie heroes devoured Galactus and set off for the stars, leaving behind a whole ton of zombie supervillains. The Kingpin, working with the Jackal, is able to create clone humans to feed the zombie hordes and holds all the power himself. Machine Man and Jocasta get the blood sample from the Kingpin's wife, but Aaron Stark sees the clone humans being destroyed and wrecked without concern, and sees in them his own robot kind, and thus sets out to deal with the zombies himself. Meanwhile, we learn that Zombie Morbius plans to use the 50 State Initiative to infect all of America's superhero teams at once, under the pretense of getting them a vaccine for the zombie plague. Machine Man escapes on Zombie Ghost Rider's motorcycle,
Because of course Robot Heaven would have the most awesome things ever.
while Jocasta returns with the blood sample. Unfortunately, by this point the ruse is over and the plague has spread throughout the operatives of Armor. Jocasta manages to hold off the zombies from reaching their teleporters as Machine Man returns, having killed the Jackal and his cloning technology to ensure there will be no more human cattle. The zombies are defeated, but it seems that before Jocasta could secure the teleporters, a zombie got to them. They will need a special team to hunt down this zombie. Unfortunately, the real Morbius has a team in mind, the Midnight Suns.
And indeed, come back tomorrow, my children, for the next step in the saga. Marvel Zombies 4! Midnight Suns!
Ah, my children, now we are truly having something entirely within my range of expertise. For this comic features the return of the Midnight Suns, a collection of Marvel's horror-themed characters. We've talked about one in particular already, Simon Garth, the zombie, but there were many more, like Werewolf by Night, Son of Satan, and of course, Man-Thing.
I am told that Man-Thing is quite giant-sized. I sure hope I am the first person ever to make that joke.
And also along for the ride with the Midnight Suns is Jennifer Kyle, one of the two survivors of the incursions from last time. We continue where we left off from Marvel Zombies 3. Michael Morbius, the living vampire, has assembled the aforementioned Midnight Suns to track down the escaped zombie plague carrier. His identity? The equally aforementioned Simon Garth. He is carrying around the head of zombie Deadpool. They got teleported to the bottom of the ocean, where Deadpool bit a few undersea fish people on their way out. The Midnight Suns deal with that, while Deadpool's head is brought to Black Talon, a witch doctor who plans to sell the head to the supervillain known as the Hood. The Hood's people confirm how virulent the plague is, how utterly devastating it would be for both sides if they were to use it. But the Hood is getting direction from the dread Dormammu, Lord of the Dark Dimension. He wants the plague to be unleashed upon the world, devastating it so that he can then sweep in and conquer it. The Hood goes to purchase zombie Deadpool's head, but Dormammu informs him of the arrival of the Midnight Suns, still on the trail. The Hood thinks his people should be able to handle a bunch of wannabe heroes, but as Morbius points out, they are monsters! Morbius unleashes an antivirus agent against the zombie minions of the Black Talon, just as Simon Garth and Deadpool's head make a getaway, but the antivirus mutates when exposed to it, instead transforming the zombie virus into an airborne infection. Seeing where things are going, Dormammu contacts Jennifer Kyle and offers her the chance to join him, but she turns him down. For now. The airborne virus takes off in the same direction as Simon and Deadpool, but as Morbius points out, they no longer have a proper vaccine against the zombie plague should they be bitten. Oh, and then the airborne plague starts literally raining death upon everything around it. Deadpool manages to assume mental control of it thanks to his own link to the plague, getting it to kill Man-Thing. Their werewolf soon becomes infected afterwards and attacks Jennifer Kyle, forcing her to accept Dormammu's deal to save her life. Dormammu assumes command of the zombie plague, forcing it to resurrect the Hood's minions to do as it pleases. The Son of Satan manages to get Jennifer Kyle to reject Dormammu and expel his influence from her body. With a combination of magics from her and the Black Talon, they force the virus into a single vessel, Simon Garth, who has put Deadpool's head on a boat and sent it off into the ocean. And Jack Russell, the werewolf? Well, fortunately, while his human form was infected, his werewolf form was not. So by turning him back into that form, he has survived the plague too. But what will become of zombie Deadpool's head? Well, that's for next time, my children. Before Deadpool, the hilarious wall-breaking anti-hero of the Marvel Universe, got himself hooked up with an ancient monster demon queen, he had himself a series of adventures, even multiple series at once. And thus we got to this one, and its ties to the Marvel Zombie Universe. The terrorist organization AIM hires Deadpool to go into the Savage Land and retrieve some kind of biological weapon that Hydra had discovered there. And what is this biological weapon? Why, none other than the zombie head of Deadpool. It becomes lovingly known as Headpool.
I would have gone with Deadhead myself, but I just like rhyming things.
Deadpool meets up with Dr. Betty Swanson, a scientist for AIM, who is supposed to help him retrieve the head. Deadpool explains his backstory, and the three make their way to try to escape the Savage Land, particularly to get away from the natives who are worshipping the head as their god. Or the Hydra agents who want the head for the zombie virus. Or the dinosaurs. Or the zombie dinosaur caused by Deadpool taking a bite out of it. Whoopsie! What's worse, when they do escape the Savage Land and return to AIM's space station, Deadpool realizes that if the zombie plague ever gets loose on Earth, everyone will die! And that includes the guys who make Fresca. After Hydra launches an attack on the space station, Deadpool escapes with the head, Dr. Betty, and AIM's most decorated agent, Bill. They head to Florida to try to send Deadpool back into his own universe, traveling through a variety of different parallel worlds, including one with a lady Deadpool. More on her next time, though. Unfortunately, none of them are the zombie Earth. Fortunately, then Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Voodoo shows up to realign the dimensional portal and allow them passage into the world of Marvel Zombies. And immediately they are set upon by zombie heroes and have to go on the run, fortunately meeting up with some human resistance.
We keep finding more humans alive in the zombie world. I don't think the zombie heroes worked very hard to eat the entire population of Earth when this keeps happening.
We later learn that this particular portal has sent them back in time as well, to a point before the zombie Deadpool emerged in Marvel Zombies 3. But hey, like how Machine Man thought this was robot heaven, Deadpool finds it pretty great here too. Lots of video games, lots of hot pockets, and the lead scientist of the human resistance actually finds him attractive and sleeps with him. But hey, even that can get boring after a while, and they get to work on finding a way home. And it involves stealing a blimp and crashing a motorcycle into Zombie Iceman. Eventually, they find their way back to the normal Marvel universe and replace the original timeline Zombie Deadpool with Headpool, giving him a new body. Just in time for it to be sliced off of him right as it did originally. Whoops. But hey, at least Deadpool survived.
For the moment, anyway. Come back in 2 days for more adventures of Deadpool and Headpool. And more Deadpools!
Technically speaking, this little spin-off of the Marvel Zombie saga begins in Prelude to Deadpool Corps, 5 issues that give the backstories of the individual members of this little corps, each of which come from a different parallel universe. First is Lady Deadpool, who comes from an oppressive world where America is in a new civil war. Next is Kidpool, a child Deadpool who goes to the Xavier orphanage for troubled boys, where he routinely gives wedgies to Cyclops. Then there is Dogpool, who is literally a dog with Deadpool's powers. He was raised in a circus. And finally there is our old pal Headpool, whom we are concerned with during this month. History did not end up repeating itself this time around, and instead Headpool did not end up in the Savage Land, but was taken by a boat to a mad scientist on an island. While the scientist has not been successful in all his endeavors, he was able to create a beanie copter hat that can make its wearer fly, and is controlled by brain waves. And how convenient then that it ends up right with the head who needs it the most. So what's the deal with this story? Why are all these Deadpools gathered together by the merc with a mouth we know and love? A cosmic being called the Contemplator has detected a threat to the multiverse and has figured that a team of Deadpools is, in fact, the best solution to this threat. You know how people say method in their madness? Well, with Deadpool, madness is their method. The enemy they fight is a cosmic horror, a being that devours consciousness in the same way Galactus devours worlds. Lady Deadpool calls it Frank. The actual name is the Awareness, though, and it has already absorbed 1,000,000 worlds into its collective consciousness. But there is true horror already in this book, as you can see. The penciler of Deadpool Corps is none other than Rob Liefeld. Upon reaching the Awareness, he tries to go inside their minds, only to find them cluttered with pop culture ephemera. He still crafts scenarios to trap them inside their own psyches, but of course it is Headpool to the rescue. Probably because of his undead nature, he is able to reach the small being at the heart of the Awareness and damages its equipment, allowing the rest of the Corps to escape. But that is not the end for the Corps. On their way back to Earth, they are embroiled in the intergalactic politics of the Omega Confederation, first dealing with a bunch of pirates, and then creating a marketing blitz across the universe by talking up the poor natives of a planet the Confederation is exploiting. Unfortunately, this then leads to civil war between the natives, those who follow the king's daughter, who wants to modernize, and the king, who wants to preserve their way of life. I don't really care about all that myself since there is a distinct lack of zombies in the storyline, but it does result in the Deadpool Corps being split on which side they have allegiance to. Or did it? Well, the mercenary lifestyle is that. All money, no morals. Most of the time, anyway. Unfortunately, their intergalactic antics finally get back to the Contemplator and his other cosmic associates, and they decide that the Deadpool Corps is too chaotic for its own good and send everyone home to their own universes, including Headpool. But while that brings an end to the story of the zombie head of Deadpool, don't worry, my children. For while we have seen the end of that chapter, it's time for us to finally catch back up with some old friends of ours. To fill out the rest of the month, my children, instead of talking about all the issues of Marvel Zombies Return at once, we shall instead look at each individual issue per day. After all, they each tell a complete story while also being a chapter of a greater narrative, so it is something to build up. You will recall that at the end of Marvel Zombies 2, all of the zombified heroes of that world were sent off into parts unknown by a dimensional transporter. Well, they all ended up in the same universe, but at different times and places of that world. The first to land is the zombie Spider-Man, who tries to use his cosmic powers he absorbed from Galactus to fly and survive his new surroundings. Only to find that the cosmic powers have left him while in transport. As he falls trying to use his organic web shooters instinctively to save himself, he has a more gruesome power now, shooting out his veins and arteries and using them as webbing.
Pretty sure veins and arteries are not strong enough to hold up a human body or stick to things, but clearly this is just one of the advantages of being a zombie.
Zombie Spider-Man has arrived in the universe at a much earlier state, a more innocent time to be sure. He reads in the newspaper about a mystical tablet that he himself had once protected from the Kingpin and rival mob leader Silvermine. The tablet is said to possess the key to eternal youth, and Zombie Spider-Man thinks it might be his key to ridding himself of the zombie plague. The Kingpin, learning of Spider-Man in the area of the tablet, abandons his original plan and instead hires the Sinister Six to deal with the wall crawler. However, the Six do not realize that this is the zombie they are facing, and when he smells the unique herbs that Kraven the Hunter carries with him to enhance his strength, the scent is overpowering, and Zombie Spider-Man devours him. The poor villains are unprepared for such a ravenous foe, and all are killed, save for the Sandman, who runs off in terror at what he has beheld. On his way out, though, he encounters this universe's Spider-Man, and, mistaking him for the zombie, utterly murders him from the inside out. Back with the zombie Spider-Man, after eating the Kingpin, he discovers that the villainous Sinister Six have been busy after he ate parts of them, and have begun to eat all of Petey's loved ones. The tablet has been absconded with by the Kingpin's lackeys, and everybody Peter knew and loved is dead. Well, except for Aunt May, but whatever. Zombie Petey is feeling pretty bad about himself, deciding to rip off his own skin because, again, zombie physiology is really freaking weird. But the story does not end there, gruesome believers, for the Watcher has been observing these events very closely. He has decided that for the good of all universes, they must stop the zombie plague. For at least a good minute before zombie Ant-Man teleports into the Watcher's headquarters and bites his head off. More on that tomorrow, my children. As I mentioned last time, my children, the dimensional portal from Marvel Zombies 2 sent the super zombies all across time and space. Zombie Spider-Man ended up in a world resembling the swinging 60s version of the Marvel Universe. But now this world is a little farther along. 2 years later, apparently, where we see Tony Stark, Iron Man, in the midst of a full-on drunken spiral into self-destruction. In the basement of the building, however, zombie Ant-Man has teleported in and decides to have himself a quick snack while he looks for something. Pepper Potts writes up her resignation while Happy Hogan goes to investigate a mysterious warning from the sub-basement and walks into the waiting jaws of Ant-Man. Ant-Man monologues, while still chewing on Happy's arm, how rude, about how he wants to use the Watcher's technology to spread the hunger gospel to as many universes as he can. And eat them, of course, but it is locked out from him. Fortunately, Stark Tech should be able to provide a solution for him. Happy Hogan is zombified himself and soon travels up the hallways infecting people. But fortunately, Security Officer Jim Rhodes takes out a few. Some of the zombies start to escape, and Pepper Potts wants Tony to put on the armor, even in the state he's in, even willing to put it on herself if she has to. But the armor is in his briefcase, and his brain cells have decayed to the point where he doesn't even remember where he left it. Ant-Man recruits the zombies to help him find the technology he wants, but also instructs them to find and eat Tony Stark and keep him from interfering. However, it is Jim Rhodes who finds the armor and puts it on, quickly getting the zombies to eat some repulsor rays. He reaches Tony Stark, who has his own weapon to use against the zombies: an incomplete cure for cancer! Or rather, nanomachines designed to tear apart diseased or necrotic tissue and use the material to multiply. Unfortunately, it only works if you ingest it, so it's not exactly the most potent weapon. Unless, of course, Tony drinks it down and invites the zombies to eat him. Ant-Man gets away with the device he wanted, but Rhodey escapes the coming zombie apocalypse with the Iron Man suit to fight another day. And speaking of another day, come back tomorrow for another zombie hero materializing, and zombie Spider-Man coming back to play his part. In the back alleys of Tokyo, Kitty Pryde has been going on a global road trip with Wolverine when she gets separated from him and encounters ninjas.
I imagine that just happens in Japan. Turn the corner, boom, ninjas!
She finds Wolverine, but not the one she was expecting. Yes, the zombie Wolverine has made himself known and attacks the ninjas, quickly feasting upon them before turning his attentions on Kitty. Fortunately for her, zombie Spider-Man has appeared as well and promptly tosses his former colleague into a wall. He gives her a rundown of what's going on, including that the zombie Wolverine has been here for some time. However, the loss of the power cosmic has resulted in him becoming extremely paranoid, so he stayed hidden and eating only the homeless to prevent any competition. But as time has gone on, he has become more brazen, open, and ready to spread the hunger gospel anew. Zombie Spidey has been busy too. In the intervening time, he has created a cure. Of sorts, it won't reverse zombie Wolverine's condition, but it will deaden the fires of the hunger, hopefully restore his sanity enough to make him reconsider the whole eating people thing. Unfortunately, to complete it, he needs a blood sample from this universe's Wolverine. Speaking of, Zombie Wolvie finds his way into an underground fight club where this world's Wolverine is hanging out. The two begin to brawl, although more ninjas show up to disrupt things. Zombie Spidey reveals his true nature to Kitty, who is is less than enthusiastic about it, although he points out the ways she can kill him as a sign of trust. He has been eating people to keep his brain functioning, which is odd since the lack of eating things was supposed to undo the hunger over time, but whatever. But really only zombie Wolverine's leftovers. He hasn't actively gone out and killed anyone in quite a while. Eventually, everyone is brought together and the zombie Wolverine killed by his counterpart from this universe. Spidey gets his sample, and he thinks his treatment should be successful if any other zombie heroes appear. Unfortunately, as we see in the final battle, it seems zombie Wolverine had the last bite in the end. Our next stop in Marvel history with the zombie tour brings us to one that was more recent at the time. The Hulk, betrayed by his friends, was sent off into space to ensure he would never hurt anyone ever again. Instead, he was brought to a world, fought in gladiatorial combat, and made himself allies and friends. His war-bound! But something went wrong, and his true love on the world was killed. Blaming those who sent him into space, the Hulk was returning to Earth to get his vengeance and begin World War Hulk. But his first stop was the moon, home of the alien beings known as the Inhumans. Unfortunately for him, zombie Ant-Man reached the Inhumans first, transforming them all into zombies. His war-bound are devoured, and the Hulk himself infected, the hunger overtaking him. He heads to New York and quickly begins his work anew. The World War Hulk has come, just not in the form it was originally meant to. He eats and eats, beginning to spread the plague out. Those who sent him into space quickly blind themselves, but fortunately, Tony Stark is no longer among their number. Jim Rhodes is, and he realizes that the zombies have come again. They send out the one man who can stop the Hulk, the one stronger even than he. The one who has befriended the Hulk before. The Sentry! In the original World War Hulk, he just sat on his ass, too afraid to go out due to some psychological issues he was having. But in this one, I think he realized rather quickly that the Hulk going through New York eating people meant that he had to get off the couch and actually deal with the threat. He knocks the Hulk clear through several buildings, finally forcing the Hulk back into Bruce Banner. Unfortunately, when the Sentry returns to his human state to be on Bruce's level, Bruce admits that nothing can stop the hunger and bites the Sentry's hand. He is transformed instantly, and the two decide that they will consume this world, this universe, and there is nothing that can stop them. Well, except for a certain zombie Spider-Man who has been watching things unfold and realizes that he can no longer fight this problem alone. Thus he calls out for Avengers to dismember. Come back tomorrow, my children, for the final fights of all those teleported away and of the original Marvel Zombie Plague. Years have passed on the surface of a world now designated Earth Z. Like the world that spawned the Marvel Zombies comics originally, it has been completely devastated. Even Galactus' corpse lies alongside the decayed remains of heroes and villains of this world. A few zombies remain in control though. The Sentry, Moon Knight, Quasar, Submariner, Thundra, Quicksilver, and finally the Super Skrull. It is quite hilarious, I must admit, my children. You see, the 7 here are meant as a mocking parody of the Justice League of the DC Universe. Why is that? Well, when the Marvel Zombies began, so long ago, there was speculation the being that was meant to bring this plague was an alternate universe version of Superman. And here we have their equivalents, happily discussing their favorite times they ate people. In their discussions, they also reveal what became of the other undead heroes teleported away at the end of Marvel Zombies 2. The Wasp had appeared to the aliens known as the Kree, converting them into a zombie army that she brought back to Earth. Similarly, Luke Cage appeared on the Shi'ar throne world, converting its Imperial Guard into his own army. And finally, the Black Panther came to the Skrull homeworld, much like how his main Marvel counterpart had appeared there once too, in the middle of a zombie attack, and brought the shape-changing Skrulls back to Earth. And of course, all three armies failed. It is quite disappointing in that regard, my children, that even the ones whom we would consider the good guys in all of this were defeated off-panel in stories that we shall never see. But them's the breaks. Their remains now hang as trophies on their wall. Ant-Man has still been hard at work in this universe, trying to untangle the Watcher's technology to send the Hunger Gospel into as many universes as they want. In the meantime, the zombie super friends detect some flesh still remaining out in the Savage Land and head out to consume it. And are shot down by the Resistance, the new Avengers! It consists of the zombified Hulk, betrayed by the Sentry who wanted more meat for himself, the zombified Wolverine of this world, who had to see Kitty Pryde eaten up in a most painful display, Jim Rhodes, who has lost much of his own meat, having to amputate himself a few times to keep the infection from getting to him, and finally the zombie Spider-Man, still determined to end the Hunger Gospel once and for all. Zombie Wolverine is able to pierce the Sentry's skin, almost unleashing the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. However, Ant-Man then teleports everyone up to the moon. It seems the dimensional portal has been ready for some time now. He just lacked the power to make it work. How fortunate then that the Sentry is now leaking power all over the place. Thankfully though, Spidey releases his cure. That cure? The Sandman! Yes, he has been inoculated by the vaccine developed back in issue 3 and laced with the nanomachines from issue 2 that destroy necrotic tissue. And thus all he has to do is pass himself over the zombies, and they are quite permanently dead. Spidey too finally, happily, sees himself meet his end. And what of the dimensional teleporter? Well, it seems the Watcher was not quite as dead as he appeared. Indeed, he was just playing possum. He had no real physical body for the infection to spread to. He has been trying to think of the best way to deal with this whole infection, and a solution has presented itself. He cannot undo the damage done by the zombies, but he can contain it. The zombie Sentry is the only one left, and thus the Watcher sends this Sentry to be the one who first appeared so many books ago, turning the zombie virus into a closed time loop across these universes. As the Watcher points out, let this virus devour itself! Of course, that still does not explain Magneto's deal with the zombies, but whatever, we can assume the thing from Evil Evolution was supposed to undo that. Marvel Zombies Return is an epic conclusion to the saga of the original zombie plague. Despite some continuity hiccups here and there, and some unsatisfying story elements, it did give us our fair share of gory and gooey zombie fun that we've come to expect from this series. But we're still not quite done, my children. Come back on Tuesday for the final numbered book of the Marvel Zombie saga, and all the disappointment that comes with it. The original zombie plague is now a closed time loop, so where is there to go? Well, remember, my children, that the zombie virus still tried to spread itself to the main Marvel universe, and they don't want to have that ever happening again. Armor, the alternate reality monitoring and operation response agency, have designated several Earths off limits due to the mass conversion of the population into new forms, aka zombie form. And the first of these worlds we encounter is a world roughly in the late 1800s, the Wild West as it were, and a meteor has crashed to Earth, bringing with it a radiation into the atmosphere that converts the dead into classic Romero-style zombies. These ones operate on muscle memory, the radiation stimulating whatever is left of their mortal cortex, hence why they only go down with a shot to the brain. The Wild West town is soon overcome, with the only survivor being Jockely Kine, daughter of Wild West hero the Hurricane. Anyway, Machine Man has been charged by Morbius to go to various alternate realities and capture samples of different kinds of zombie plagues. The hope is that by having a full catalog, they will be able to prevent future outbreaks of zombie attacks in their universe. Along with Machine Man is the most natural of enemies aside from apes, Howard the Duck. Jockely comes with them, having inherited mystical gun-shooting powers from her late father and having nothing left for her in the Old West, and she takes up the name Swift Cloud. Next up is a world where H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds was real, and while in the 18th century humanity turned back the invasion thanks to germs, the Martians returned in the 21st century with a fully active immune system and took over the world. The next type of zombie for this world is referred to as a boil, meaning a 28 days later style infection of rage zombie. They get their sample, but Machine Man helps the local resistance to bring down the Martians in a most effective manner, turning himself over to them with the sample and allowing the rage virus to infect the people in the facility so that they will attack their Martian masters. And then Machine Man interfaces with a Martian tripod and kills the rage zombies before they can kill his friends. Next up is the Raimi strain, also known as the Deadite. It's less an undead form of the plague and more a form of possession, though it does like itself some dead bodies, and a knightly sort at that, as a noble knight accidentally unleashes an evil plague of demonic possession to the dead, which our heroes are able to dispatch with Swift Cloud's swiftness. Fourth up is the energetically autonomous tactical robots, or Eaters. On this world, the Jocasta android got fed up with the cyborg humans in this cyberpunk world, and how the line between machine and man got too blurry, and thus decided to create a virus into their cybernetic circuitry to turn them all against each other. Let the machine rip their fleshy bits to pieces. To Machine Man's displeasure, he has to end this virus at the source, ultimately, of course, choosing the fleshy ones. And the final issue, the final conclusion of the numbered Marvel Zombies comics, is the real disappointment, my children. The other 4 stories have been fine, quite interesting in exploring different forms of zombies, and would have been a unique capstone to this experience, but the final issue is where everything feels so lackluster and kind of insulting, really. The zombie virus, referred to as a Jackson, infects one person, a comic book fan in an otherwise completely normal world, and thus we see this poor man's life completely fall apart as he becomes a zombie and is continually tempted to eat the flesh of the living, but just barely managing to stave it off. He even considers trying to be a hero, trying to save people. And then he can't move due to rigor mortis setting in. Our heroes arrive, take the sample, and then burn him to death. Howard then asks a series of logical questions about zombies and how they don't make any sense, but he points out that that's the thing. Humanity never lets facts get in the way of a good story. The problem, my children, is that this was not a good story. It had the beginnings of one, but the final issue feels more like it's trying to insult the people who read comic books and think too hard about things. Except people who are reading a book called Marvel Zombies 5 about a robot, a cowgirl, and an anthropomorphic duck going from universe to universe collecting samples from different zombie strains really aren't the type of people who are thinking about facts and logic. What's more though, we go through 4 stories of exciting, hellish delight, and end it with a tragedy that ends up going nowhere. It's just utterly disappointing. The good news, though, is that we are still not quite over yet. While the numbered books are gone, there are still books with the Marvel Zombies logo on it that we need to go over, my children. Come back tomorrow for a supremely good time! The Squadron Supreme are a group of superheroes from another universe designed by Marvel creators to resemble DC's Justice League, so that Marvel heroes could interact with DC heroes without all that legal mumbo-jumbo getting in the way of crossovers or the like. However, their characters expanded beyond their XP nature, leading to several miniseries on the events that tied them into the Mind Marvel universe. For a time, they were stranded on the Mind Marvel Earth at a government facility called Project Pegasus. Originally, it was built to research alternative forms of energy. But then its scope expanded into housing superpowered criminals and, well, what we have here today. A military team is sent to investigate why Project Pegasus has suddenly gone quiet and its security measures activated. Along with them is a superhero who worked with Captain America, known as Battlestar. They enter into the facility and soon find scientist survivors who chastise them for disabling the security measures. And we soon see why, for within these walls are the Squadron Supreme, turned into zombies. After barely escaping from them, the scientists explain what happened. A former one of their peers was convinced that the DNA of the Squadron Supreme held the answers to great leaps in medical science. He even hoped to cure his own terminal illness with them. This man, Dr. Dowie, injected the DNA of the Squadron into medical cadavers and infused them with Zeta rays that helped him create almost perfect clone duplicates of the Squadron Supreme. Unfortunately, something went wrong, and the clones awoke with the appetite for flesh.
And then for some reason they all decided to sew together their old uniforms.
Since Project Pegasus was researching alternate sources of energy, they also looked to harnessing a magma flow underneath their facility. The zombie Hyperion uses it as a way to escape and attack Kansas, eating poor Ma and Pa Kent here. Eventually, he comes across a freight train full of cattle that he happily munches down. He is also confronted by a bunch of Kansas-themed superheroes called the Harvesters. He slaughters them all, save for Pioneer, a lady with a gun and the ability to reanimate dead cows. However, she is not the one to stop Hyperion, but the dead cows themselves. See, it turns out they had mad cow disease, and the zombie state really couldn't handle that. Back in Project Pegasus, they find a lab with an unknown energy source. Reconstituting it, it turns out to be the hero known as Jack of Hearts. Unfortunately, it seems Dr. Dowie did not perish when the Zombie Squadron Supreme became active, but instead partially transformed into a zombie himself, and has, of course, embraced his mad scientist ways, and now believes that zombiehood is the best thing to ever happen to him.
In another universe, his name was Reed Richards.
Fortunately, since the particles that make up Jack of Hearts' body were used to create the zombies, Jack is able to reabsorb the particles back into himself and kill off the zombie squadron. However, it seems that Dr. Dowie does manage to escape and chow down some campers, though that thread is never followed up on. Marvel Zombie Supreme is a return to form, my children. While these are not the Hunger Gospel zombies we've come to know and love, they do act in a similar manner, and the change of scenery allowed for a more claustrophobic horror experience. Next time, our penultimate Marvel Zombies outing brings us back to Howard the Duck and zombie Nazis! Howling Commando Dum Dum Dugan, like Captain America, is currently living in modern times despite having served in World War II. He is also an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. now, which means he has a unique situation before him for recruitment into a special operation. In particular, this operation is being headed by Howard the Duck. Armor's research into other universes, particularly those of the zombie bent, has led them to discover one where the Nazis won World War II. By becoming zombies! What's worse, the Nazi zombies plan to use a cross-dimensional battleship powered by a reality-shattering super engine to invade the normal Marvel universe, conquer it, and then eat it. Naturally, this is not acceptable to Howard or anyone else at Armor. Dum Dum Dugan is reluctant to once again sacrifice everything for king and country when he's lost everyone he's ever known and loved, but fortunately he has a friend to convince him otherwise. Battlestar! Yes, the same hero from Marvel Zombies Supreme. It seems we need someone with experience against the zombie hordes, although they're not bringing a small team at all. Howard the Duck has assembled his Ducky Dozen to travel into the other universe. While most of them are cannon fodder, it should be noted that one of their numbers includes not only a robot with an eternal brain, but also Blazing Skull, aka I want to be Ghost Rider so I have lit my skull on fire. Also, a lion man named Gur who is zombified almost immediately. But yes, they travel to this other world and engage the enemy right away, including zombie versions of the invaders, minus Captain America. They begin losing team members fast, unfortunately, but the dead are replaced by the Suffragists, a group of World War II-era heroines, including Miss America, Libertas, Columbia, and Riveter.
God bless America, my home and native country!
Meeting up with a defecting Nazi scientist named Zephyr Zog, he explains to them how the Nazis won the war. When things seemed at their lowest, the Nazis were desperate to get in contact with the Norse gods, assuming they would favor their campaign. Baron von Strucker and his party went to Tibet, discovering instead a dark lama who gave them the Death Spore flower, grown in the Viking underworld hell, fertilized with the rotting remains of pagan gods. Consuming its petals transformed those who took it into zombies, granting them the power they needed to overrun the world. To ensure they cannot create a second vessel to travel out of their universe, they need to destroy the original flower, since they are all still connected to the vile blossom. Its destruction will end the Nazis once and for all. We also learn why it is that Dum Dum Dugan was required for this assignment. His counterpart in this universe is also a ranking Nazi officer, so if they disguise him as a zombie, he can get inside and provide them the intelligence they need to get in and finish the job. On the way, however, we soon discover the real source of the zombie plague on this world. Loki! He was the llama who gave away the Death Spore flower, hoping that the zombies would either force Thor to watch helplessly as his favorite world was eaten, or he would intervene and lose Odin's favor for violating his father's decree that none would go back to Midgard. Instead, Odin himself traveled to Earth to investigate. But he was weak, in dire need of the Odin sleep, so instead found himself bitten and infected. And since the blood of Odin flows through all the gods, save for Loki, all of the Norse gods were zombified and joined forces with the Nazis. Naturally, he is not really happy with how things turned out and would happily aid our heroes in their task. The plan succeeds, more or less, except Loki reveals that destroying the flower will not actually cure the virus. Instead, their plan is to use the unexploded American atomic bomb Batman to wipe out the zombies. They are successful, but in the end, a lot of good people had to die to achieve that victory. Also Loki. However, the zombie threat to their universe might not entirely be over, for within a refrigerator that our heroes took cover in was the remains of Captain America, being eaten slowly by the Red Skull. But the final panel is his dead eye opening.
But never you mind that, my children, for tomorrow brings us an end to the Marvel Zombie saga. See you then! Happy Halloween, my children! What's that? It's not Halloween? Oh, but my children, it is! It is in the land of the Marvel Zombies, for our final look at the twisted heroes brings us to our favorite holiday, in Marvel Zombies Halloween.
Back in the original Marvel Zombies world, as we have pointed out, there have been plenty of human survivors. Today we concern ourselves with these two, a woman and her son Peter. They have been living in a house, growing their own food, and have managed to barricade themselves from the zombie hordes. Fortunately, they have not had any zombie superheroes to contend with, just your regular zombies who run into their minefield or are shot with bullets. Peter is intrigued when he discovers the word Halloween on a calendar, and his mother explains the holiday to him.
A child who has never heard of Halloween? Blasphemy!
The boy wishes to celebrate Halloween, thinking it would be fun to be someone else for a day. The mother refuses, since there's really no one around to celebrate it with, and even then, it is a distraction. And a distraction is how the boy's father got killed. But as Peter points out, if they can't have any fun for even one day, why are they even bothering to stay alive? She finds him a Wolverine costume, even pointing out that he was always her hero, and plans to go out to town later to try to get him some candy. Probably expired by this point, but beggars can't be choosers. However, Peter runs out when a kitten they had located runs outside as well, and he chases the black cat. Peter even finds an untouched house and asks the scruffy man inside if he's seen the cat. But the man just says that it's not even Halloween, that it's October 30th. As it's called in Detroit, Devil's Night.
A wonderful name if ever I heard one, my children. But every day has its own holiday, even July 31st. Happy Kahai Hawaii Day, my children!
Zombie heroes soon locate dear Peter, and they begin arguing over who gets to eat him, even mocking the poor child for his desire to find his lost kitty cat. Fortunately, his mother soon arrives with bullets to deal with them. But they are quickly cornered yet again. Until the clock strikes midnight and the scruffy man returns. He's pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed his name. Yes, it is Mephisto, who happily torches the zombies to save Peter and his mother, Kitty Pryde. However, even this shadow cat knows not to trust the devil, who only wants to save them so that he may corrupt the last few souls still left on Earth. And he tells little Peter that one day he shall come again, and he hopes that he will have sympathy for what he did for him and his mother on All Hallows Eve. Later that night, Kitty tells her son that there's no chance that he will ever go with Mephisto, talking about his father, Colossus, and how when Mephisto came to him with an offer, the metal mutant strode right past him. Colossus always believed that the plague would end one day, and humanity would make its way back. For this is Halloween, when the dead are with us in spirit at the very least, and this is a day for the hope of the dead to shine at its brightest. And thus the Marvel Zombie saga ends with the real present Kitty has for Peter, his lost kitten returned and resting in a jack-o'-lantern.
This midsummer's nightmare is ended, my children. For now. There are still Marvel Zombie stories on the horizon, and perhaps we shall talk of them in the future. But for now, emerge from the darkness of sleep and enjoy the light of the summer sun.